Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, welcome. I'm Loriente. Today's video is super casual, super informal. I don't even really know everything that I plan on talking about, so bear with me because we might be kind of all over the place. So it's officially October. Don't ask me how that happened. It was September 1st, like 5 minutes ago. But we're here. But I didn't want to let the month go by without acknowledging that October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. I believe like the official day that it's acknowledged is the 15th, but the whole month is credited with being Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. Now, somebody who has struggled with infertility and struggled with growing their family, I have always had a tremendous amount of empathy for all of the families who have experienced pregnancy and infant loss. Every time I hear any kind of story of loss, like my heart just shatters for people. Earlier this year, I unfortunately became a member of this club that nobody ever aspires to be a part of. In February, my husband and I were shocked to find out that we were pregnant after 8 years of infertility, 8 years of negative pregnancy tests and doctors and 2 adoption journeys. After 8 years and not even trying, here we find ourselves pregnant. And shortly after, we ended up miscarrying and losing the baby. I started bleeding a few days after finding out, and then we went to the doctor. It took about a week for them to confirm that my beta levels were dropping, and then it took another like 2 or 3 weeks before I had to go back to find out if I was gonna need a DNC or anything. And so for about a month, I was just in like this really chaotic space. It felt like I was on a roller coaster every second of the day. And in life, you often hear the expression, we often say the expression, right? Everything happens for a reason. Pregnancy and infant loss to me is one of those areas where like that saying just doesn't apply. There's just no way to make sense of that loss. It just feels entirely unfair and wrong. For those of you who haven't seen it and who are interested, I'm going to link the video up top that I shared about my miscarriage. I was vlogging the whole process because what I was hoping to capture was the first trimester of a healthy, viable pregnancy, and instead what I ended up capturing was the process of a miscarriage. Once I kind of had a feeling about what was going on, like I could have stopped filming, but I kept going in hopes of one of 2 things, right? The first one being that this was all some kind of misunderstanding and that there was still going to be a miracle baby at the end of all of the bleeding that I was experiencing, right? And I would go on to have a regular pregnancy. In the event that that wasn't our journey, and it wasn't, I was hoping that by documenting the miscarriage, maybe I'd have the courage to share it. I felt incredibly vulnerable sharing a video where I'm literally sobbing on camera and talking about something so deeply personal, but ultimately I decided to share it. I thought it would be a good way for me to close out that chapter and to kind of move forward, but I also felt like it might be able to help someone in some way. Society, like pregnancy loss and sometimes even infant loss, has kind of been hush hush. It was hard, it was emotional. We don't often talk about hard emotional things with people we don't know, right? And so we keep that to ourselves, plus, you know, the stigma or the shame that you feel at fault for what happened because it was your body that couldn't do it. And I hope that at this point in society in 2024, we all understand medically that nothing has to be done for a pregnancy to result in a loss, okay? It could just not have been a viable pregnancy. It doesn't mean that somebody did anything to cause that. And therefore, there really shouldn't be any kind of shame or stigma attached to having a miscarriage or losing a pregnancy. When we have the difficult conversations and we talk about the hard things, we make them a little bit more normal, and it makes it a little bit easier for the next person to talk about, a little bit easier for the next generation to go through. And listen, I don't know everything about everything. I'm not the smartest person in the world, and I certainly wasn't a psychology major. But what I do know about humans is that we desire connection. One of the greatest ways for us as humans to experience connection is through shared experiences. That's how we find our group. That's how we find our people. So in retrospect, although some people probably think that it's weird that I shared that personal video, I'm glad that I did it. If it could help even a single person, I'm glad that I did it. If you're somebody who has experienced or you're currently experiencing pregnancy or infant loss, oh my gosh, my heart goes out to you. You have every right to be sad, to be depressed. There's no time limit on how long you have to be sad or depressed or angry or anything else that you may feel. Your healing journey doesn't have to be linear. It doesn't just have to be like, oh, we're healed. It's gonna look like this. You're gonna be all over the place for a while. Please don't be in a rush to get yourself back to whatever normal is. Obviously, we have to pick ourselves up and start to move forward because life doesn't stop, right? We have responsibilities and things that we have to do. You know, your job's not gonna wait for you to cry in bed for, 4 months over this. Your kids are still need their lunches made for school. Like, I get it. We have to pick up and move forward. I have 2 toddlers, a full-time job, a household to manage. Like, I get it. Don't think you have to be back to 100% the person you were before the miscarriage a few weeks later, a month later, 2 months later, like whatever it is, a year later, if that's not how you feel at your core. For me, I felt like the weeks and months following my miscarriage that I was doing really well, right? I was like, well, I'm not crying all the time. I'm not thinking about it every second of the day. I'm good. And then in June, I started doing like these journaling exercises for myself just to kind of help myself. I would do like one in the evening, every night to just kind of like work through whatever. And I kind of realized in doing that I had some kind of unresolved feelings about the miscarriage, some things that I was still sad about, upset about, whatever. And I hadn't really dealt with them. And I hadn't dealt with them because I kind of buried them. And I have this tendency in many areas of my life. I can be a bit avoidant about things and emotions. And I found that I had really done that with a lot of what I was feeling about the miscarriage. And it wasn't that I had to look for things to distract myself to bury those feelings either. Like I said, I've got toddlers, a full-time job, laundry piled up to the roof line. Like, I got lots of stuff to worry about. There's plenty of things to keep me distracted. In dealing with all of those things and those distractions, I wasn't really tackling the issue. I wasn't really dealing with the emotions and the pain that this caused me. I was grateful that I kind of uncovered that, and I have been, doing what I have to do to kind of work through it in a more healthy way since. And part of that was what I mentioned before, is understanding that healing is not linear. Like, it's not just like every day we're 2% better, 2% better, 2% better. If that's how it works for you, like, I love that for you. But please understand, if that's not how it's been for you, that's okay too. I think once I understood that the process isn't going to be linear for me, that I am going to be kind of all over the place, and there are some days where I'm going to be fine, and there are some days where I'm not going to want to get out of bed. That was really helpful in and of itself, because I was able to give myself grace to kind of go through the motions of it. And what I've been doing as I've kind of been going through this process, whenever like certain feelings come up, I will make note of them. So I have a notebook and I just date, and then I'll just write whatever the feelings are, write my little thoughts out about that for, the day or whatever. And then I close it and I move on. Getting the feelings out on paper is my way of acknowledging the feeling, instead of just going, we don't have time to be sad today, Lorianne. We have to go pack lunches. We got to be ready for school in 20 minutes. Like, something so simple, and it's really for my eyes only, but it really has been helping me quite a bit. I haven't tried journaling just to kind of get the thoughts out of your head, the feelings out of you and onto paper. I recommend it. To take that a step further, I'm not currently in therapy, but I have been in therapy on and off at different points in my life, and I am a firm believer of therapy and how helpful it can be. So if you haven't seen a therapist and you think that it would benefit you, I highly encourage you to find somebody professionally that you can talk to. I do understand that unfortunately therapy is kind of like a luxury. There's plenty of people who are struggling just to put groceries in their house, and getting a therapist is not an option, even with insurance. And so I totally get that. And what I encourage you to do is seek out connection. Find a friend who's gone through it, or a support group of other, women and families who have gone through it. Join them, talk to them. Remember what I said in the beginning of this video, that I really didn't plan out what I was going to say, so forgive me if I'm all over the place. This is one of those moments. I've said this time and time again when I was, dealing with my infertility struggles. A lot of the times people will say things to you, and their intention is usually to try to be comforting or to lighten the mood or whatever. Like, they're just trying to make you feel better. But they say something that ends up being more hurtful than it is helpful. And like I said, they're not usually coming from a malicious place, but it just doesn't feel good and it almost hurts more. And that same thing is true in this space as well. I've heard people say crazy things to women who have just experienced miscarriages or losses further along in their pregnancy. I've heard people say things like, well, at least it happened early before you had a chance to get attached. I myself, as somebody who already has children, have heard things like, I'm so sorry that happened, but at least you have your 2 blessings to focus on. Some people don't even have that. What I need us to do as a society is stop trying to compare grief, because 2 things can be true at the same time. You can be sad about losing your pregnancy at 8 weeks, and the people over here can be sad about a loss further along, or the loss, one doesn't negate the other. They're 2 completely separate things, separate circumstances, separate families. And just because there are families who have experienced things that you may consider more traumatic than what you've gone through yourself, doesn't mean that you're not allowed to be sad about the thing that you're going through. We try to approach a lot of things in life with this attitude of gratitude, right? Where we're like, well, be grateful for the things that you have, because there's always people that have less. So there's always people that have it worse. Your situation's not so bad. These people have it worse. And again, that can be true, and you can still be sad about what you're experiencing. Yes, I am somebody who struggled from infertility, who was blessed enough to be able to adopt 2 beautiful children who I love more than this world. But guess what? I was this baby's mother too. And I was attached the second I saw that second line on the pregnancy test. Me having Josiah and Ariella didn't take away from the fact that this still hurt, that this was still a devastating loss for not just me, but our family. The second I found out that we were expecting, I had visions of my daughter holding the baby and holding bottles on the couch, because she loves to do that with babies. She just is obsessed with babies. And I saw my son making silly faces to try to make the baby laugh. I just saw our family go from a family of 4 to what we would look like as this new family of 5. And just as quick as those visions all rushed in, they were gone, it felt like. And I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that all of these ideas that I had, all of these thoughts that I had for the future of our family was now changing. And it was now changing because we lost this baby. No matter what way you want to slice it, that was hard. No matter who else was in the world having a situation worse than ours, this was still hard for us. And I don't have to just get over it because I'm already blessed to have children, or because I was only X amount of weeks along. The same thing is true for you. You don't have to get over it because it was your 2nd pregnancy or your 5th pregnancy. And you're allowed to be sad for as long as you need to be. And I just want everybody to know, if you're going through this, you're not alone. There is a community. Find your people. Talk to them. Don't suffer in silence. This was a tough one. So thank you guys for bearing with me. You can leave me any questions or comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos in the future. And I'll see you in the next one. It'll be a happier one. Promise. Bye.